to come up with something and draft something in writing. And so I have three options that I'd like the city to consider, okay? And the first option would be the city, allow the city to take over the entire project. Let them take the project. I'm happy for them to take the project. They have resources, they have skills, they can do this. They have a golf course currently. It facilitates things. But I do have some concerns of what the details of that are. And that's where the interlocal agreement should define exactly what that is. Because in my mind, if you're taking over my project, you're taking over my costs, you're taking over everything. I want nothing to do with it. So my answer is on option number one is let the city take it over and we'll go from there. I heard at the last joint meeting that it was told to us that it was not an option because the city did not want to pay what the district paid to it for it. But it's already been paid for. So this is the cost. You can disagree with it. It is what it is. But I welcome the fact that if the city would like to take over the entire project, they can choose whoever they want to design it. They can develop whatever they want. And if they'd like a contribution from the district, I think we should be there and we should support it. So, but the city would have to assume cost and control and reimburse us for where we're at and be done with it. The second option, I would say, is the district. So the district, we currently have gone through great extensive efforts on the district's presentation over 2 years, and we've gotten to where we've gotten to. I would suggest that we just start with the East Course and do what we need to do on the East Course. To do that, it is complicated. After sitting up here for almost 3.5 years, it is not easy, and we've gone through a lot of learnings, and we like the fact that the driving range is in a safe area, it's not amongst the houses. So with that, though, I would recommend this. We need access to the West Course to do the irrigation, so that's on the city property, and technically in the title. So allow us access to build the irrigation, build the maintenance building, and do what we said when we first bought this course. When we first bought the course, we said that we could take the hotel and resell that as another hotel. Along the way, we dismissed that idea. Personally, I think the development community, others have better ideas of how to bring in retail, how to integrate it into the golf course, and that could be part of an anchor and the destination for many to do, and we should explore it further because there is a value to that that will ultimately pay back itself. So I'm suggesting that we take a slowly phased approach with the district is to carry it on. And so in order for us to do this phased approach, we will need some kind of financing. We will have to have some kind of amendment to the interlocal agreement, and it will take a long time. There's no kidding about it. It just will have to take time, and there is availability for outside financing. So I really don't see it as a tragedy, but it will take a long time. The third and final option that I sincerely think it was mentioned in the meeting, and I do listen. So at our joint meeting, I heard it prior to the joint meeting as well. One of the gentlemen mentioned, well, why aren't you doing a district revenue bond? And I thought more about that, and as suggested by others, the district, this is the third option, should seek voter approval to issue revenue bonds for upcoming projects and let the residents decide. I have really no concerns about that because the district is proposing to fund Gumbo Limbo, but honestly, go look at the agreement. The agreement is very old, and it allows for the exiting both the city and the district within 30 days. So the question is, does the community want to refund and rebuild Gumbo Limbo? That's the bigger project. It's 20 to 25 million, but we have no plans. So I did not want to support putting money down for Gumbo Limbo, not knowing what that commitment is. So I think it's important. But we also have Conister Horman. That's a $9 to $10 million project. It's phase 2. We've talked about this for many years, and the district verbally said we want to fund that and facilitate it because we see the future need of that. Spanish River Maintenance Facility, I appreciate the time that the city took with Greg Stevens to look at that. You know what? It's a very old building that needs to be replaced. But it's a $5 million facility. That's a very expensive proposition for the city or for us. So all of these projects, I would suggest, and I would also include Ocean Strand in there. I think Ocean Strand deserves to have to be open to the public. If that means putting restrooms and shelter on there, we can do that. That should all be in there. So collectively, I think you could issue a revenue bond for 45 to 55 million and put it to the taxpayers. Do they want to do this? If they don't want to do that, that's okay. I think we need to work towards what the taxpayers want. So With that said, and I realize that the other, you have not had the opportunity to talk, I did explore with council, how can we get out of this? And so my suggestion is, I'd like to make a motion to recess this meeting until October 1st. And what that allows us to do is, the three proposals I provided there, I'd like to give those back to the city and allow our staffs collectively to come back with an interlocal agreement on one of those three options, and that we come back on October 1st and we either endorse that, but it gives us that last chance. I want to get out of this mess as much as anyone else. I don't want to spend any more time talking about golf, but I'm here because I said I want to be here. And so with that, I would like to make that motion that we recess this meeting until October 1st. I need a second.
I have a question. Your first option was a city run, that option includes them taking over the 24
If I
million?
could, Madam Chair, do you have a motion on the table before you have any further
We
discussion?
need a second.
If there's no second, then the motion will fail.
Just to see where this is going, I second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Engel.
Okay, so for the first option, so that them taking it over completely, that means the 24 million that we borrowed from them, they would take that over as well? That's what you're proposing?
My suggestion is that if they would like it, then it relieves us of the debt, it relieves us of the cost, and they would have to repay us if anything we spent. If they would like to use the Price Fazio design and team, they can. If they want to hire someone else and take a window of time to do it, they can. I do believe that the team did a good job of presenting things. It's a matter of now working with the price demo.
So why can't one of your options be, look at the new proposal that possibly could develop from the meeting that I had today and still continue to work with the city on getting this done?
Aaron, I think it's entirely possible. What you're describing there is a partnership, where there's this tug of war. And so
It doesn't have to be a tug of war.
it doesn't have to be a tug of war, but it is. So, I've already gone down this path in June, July, and August, and so I asked, the question from Mayor Singer was how much? So I went to him with how much. He said, you want a term sheet? So I gave him a term sheet. Then the next question was, well, we don't like Mr. Koski as project manager, so he's not the project manager. So I think the real answer is they want complete control over the entire course. And I really am okay with that. If that's what they would like to do and run it and develop it, it's better for citizens to have a working golf course, and I don't want to be muddling it up for them if they want to put something different in. It's not the vision of how we got there, and for everyone's purpose, golf courses aren't exactly like a beachfront where you're just totally lost at cost. There is a revenue source there. So what we modeled in that golf course was something to be comparable to Osprey, but to break even. We never set the rates. If you want to give the rates away, you can, but it all comes back to programming. So in my mind, they need that level of control, or we need that level of control. It just makes it a lot easier.
But do you really think they're gonna agree to pay us 24 million when they all think it was a mistake that we paid $24 million for that?
I can't look at what was done in the past, but if that means that they want to offer it up, then let's offer it up. Put the whole golf course back for sale, but I don't think that's what we want to do. So I'd say, here's your chance. You go out, we'll relieve us of the debt, we'll repay us of our costs, and we're done.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but we were told that that wasn't gonna happen, correct?
We were told that by one council person, but I
I
think
thought it was the assistant city manager.
I'm leaving three options. They can pick the option they want. I leave it to our staff and their staff to work out the details of how best to work it. The goal of all three options is no millage change.
I'm really at a loss for words. After, 2.5, 3 years of dealing with the public, and I see a different public here this evening that I wish had been out during our deliberations when we were talking about the purchase of the golf course. I heard one comment, and I really haven't been able to substantiate it, but that we outbid the city on this project. I don't remember the city bidding on the project. The 24 million, as Steve said, with the zoning that had been approved for housing on the south end of the western side, kind of contributed to the highest and best use in the appraisal that we obtained, which came in, I think, at 19 or 20 million, I believe. I think Lennar was prepared to sit on that until somebody came along and bought it. And, when we were approached by the city to engage in discussion about purchasing that property, they were thinking about selling. They wanted to sell the West Court, the Boca Municipal Course, and the only way to do that, to keep golf in Boca, was for somebody to pick up the mantle, and we did. After an exhaustive interviews with the architects, and I know members of council periodically sat in on our meetings and our deliberations. We selected what we thought was the best architects for the course. At that time, the instructions that we had is that we had to select the best architect for the course and then negotiate the price, which we did and have done, and understand we have done more of that today, which has perhaps brought the cost down. I haven't seen any of the changes that were made and how that would affect the golf course, because we're not looking at we throw around this term a world-class golf course, a championship golf course. Those terms mean different things to different people. Well, I think what we want is a golf course for the community, one that's affordable, one that can encourage the juniors to play the course. And I thought we had, and I still think we have a great design on both the east and the west side. The millage rate that was proposed would give us an extra a little over $6.5 million that'd be available for capital projects. And listening to the community, we represent another 30% of the population in the reserve area. And I don't know that we've heard from too many people in the reserve area. We've heard from a select group of individuals. I say select in that I didn't get the robocalls and I didn't get the emails, so I don't know exactly what was said, but I'm grateful that the folks came out this evening. I wish that we had done this 6 months ago. The tax increase has been said, and been said by the audience, nobody wants a tax increase. I'm one of the members that don't want a tax increase. I supported that when we first had our first hearing, because it gave us the opportunity to seek funding that we could afford to pay to develop the golf course, and also do some of the other projects that we've talked about. And we've all talked about Gumbo Limbo, and the uncertainty of what that cost is going to be, and the uncertainty of what the other capital projects are going to be, whether it's the maintenance building or the pumps and piping. I don't think that we can operate our organization fiscally without some type of a price increase, a millage increase. Aaron mentioned a 5% increase. That would make available for projects $4.7 million, which is better than if we stay at the current rate, which would give us $3.5 million available for district projects. The capital projects that we removed that you alluded to, Craig, were very expensive projects. There were projects that we want to do. I don't know that we had commitments to those, because those were requests that were made to us at some point that we would do it. As you mentioned, we do phase these projects in based upon the availability. When we purchased this project, we did have a millage increase in order to purchase Swing and Racket. After we acquired Swing and Racket, we dropped the millage rate back down again. So we've had a history of taking the millage rate up when we have a project and bringing it back down. I must admit to be rather conflicted after listening to the public and the concerns that they've expressed, and I'm sympathetic to the people that put me in office. and I've been here a very long time, and this is probably the highest seat I think I've sat in for years. But I do believe in the district's ability to do the golf course. I do believe that I'd like to see it done all in one phase, but, perhaps your suggestion, Craig, that we phase it in, might be an option. I don't know, we haven't concluded any financing, so we've been told that we could qualify for finance sufficiently to do the development of the course, as well as do our other projects. And I would like to see us get that, the millage rate that we had proposed in this, on this year, but I don't think that's going to be, I don't think that's possible. But I do think we need a rate increase. And how much should it be 5% or 10%? And I'd ask our attorney, what, if we were to win, and how could we amend this millage rate? Could it be amended this evening?
Madam Chair, if I may. David Tulsis, Board Counsel. Just to help frame where you are right now in your meeting, there was a motion to recess. The Florida statutes do allow a board to recess their final millage hearing. That would require that you renotice a hearing sometime prior to October 2nd. The October 2nd date is an important date because Palm Beach County Tax Collector must have all resolutions that are imposing millage to their office early morning on October 3rd. They then generate the certified tax roll, which has to be published and printed, I believe, by October 9th. So right now, if you recess, you've got a limited period of time. You have to publish a notice and have your next meeting no less than 2, no more than 5 days after the publication of that notice. Now, the millage rate that you proposed is the highest millage rate that you can adopt. You can go down tonight. You can go down from that millage rate. And your resolution, if you get there, whatever that motion is, will reflect whatever that millage rate is. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Do we have time now to give notice for October 1st, as Mr. Ernst is asking?
Well, I have not spoken with anybody at either of the major newspapers, but assuming you have a meeting on you want to have a meeting on October 1st, which is a Tuesday, right? The latest you could publish would be the 29th, although I would prefer the 28th. So I don't know what if you've spoken to the Sunset Liquor.
Just happened to ask this question today of them, and we could get an ad out.
Okay. So that motion before you is an option that's legally available to this board.
Are we restricted to the different options that Mr. Ernst is proposing?
No, what you have before you tonight on your agenda are 2 resolutions. The first resolution that has to be considered is the adoption of the millage rate. And as I said, the millage rate can't be any higher than what you had said is your tentative millage, but can go lower. The second resolution is your budget resolution, which can only be adopted after you adopt your millage rate. Whether you want to take any other action directing staff to move forward with any other options, that would be something separate and apart from those 2 resolutions.
I came to this meeting this evening prepared to endorse a millage increase of one size or the other, because we have been at this so diligently, and I think we've done a very good job with our budget. I'm inclined to take a recess on this, as Craig has proposed, to reset and see if we can come up with a better solution that may avoid having a 15% increase. But I do not expect that we'll be able to go to keep our millage rate the same and do what we have to do for our constituents. So I would support continuance and from our attorney, we wouldn't have to do anything but just continue the current millage rate proposal and then modify it at our next meeting if in fact that's what we decided to do.
Madam Chair, yes, what would happen is if there's a motion to recess, you would recess the meeting, this meeting would end, there would be no further discussion, there would be no adjournment. You would just step away and then you would reconvene at the date and time that you specify. And that reminds me, the motion needs to also include a time of day that your meeting would reconvene. We would then publish a notice, work with your staff to publish a notice in the paper, and then you would reconvene. And it would be just like you're starting where you left off tonight.
Can I ask,
Yes.
can I ask Brian, in terms of looking at the different, increases, if we stayed at the current rate,
Yes.
would we be able to do the projects that need to be done?
We will work with whatever budget you all want to pass. We will prioritize.
I mean, what would be ideal in terms of the budget, in terms of projects, what would be ideal?
We will prioritize projects however you need us to. Having extra money helps us fund other facilities. But if you keep the millage rate, at least it's $3.5 million, and we prioritize and work with that.
Do we have any upcoming problems that we have not discussed?
Sure.
Yes.
We do. Yes, we have a couple of roofing issues and a possible AC issue. And those are things that, as a board, you guys can, decide if you want to invest more in Patch Reef or the community center, or how we want to, go about spending. Once we, this is money that hasn't been allocated, it's just available for CIP. So if you guys pass the millage rate, the current rate is 9147, that's $3.5 million of unallocated CIP money. And how you choose to spend that, you can talk about that going forward.
My concerns are, I too am conflicted by everything that's going on. To the public, I appreciate your being here. I don't care what your view is, pro, con, or in between. The fact that you're here, this is what makes our democracy work. But having said that, please come to all our meetings, okay? They may be boring, they may be long, I'll buy you coffee, but please come to our meetings. Let us hear your voices, okay? That's more important than anything else. That contributes to what we do up here. Now, having said that, and let's forget about the golf course for a moment, as difficult as that might be. We have to worry about the pumping facility at Gumbo Limbo, which I know we're carrying over from last year.
The pipes and pumping is allocated in the city CIP, in that line on the budget right now. So that is.
That's what I said. But we also have to worry about the air conditioning and the roof at Sugar Sand.
Those are things that have not been, we don't even have costs on that yet.
Okay, so we don't have costs on those. They could be anywhere from 500,000 to $1.5 million, and I'm just throwing numbers out.
Or around 300,000.
Okay,
Could go up.
300,000. I'll take 300,000. We also have to worry about the facility at Patch Reef, Rutherford Center. That building is not in great shape.
Quiet,
Yes, order,
please.
please.
That building is not in great shape. Do we need to include that?
With the $3.5 million, if you wanna set aside money to go out and get talk about a design there, or talk about putting the second field house over there, and those are all things that we can do with this CIP money, however it is passed, and whatever's left. We can talk about how you wanna prioritize the projects and put them out there. Golf aside.
And my other concern is that we've always had $4 or $5 million in our capital reserve in case of emergencies. And over the course of a year, it seems that we've always had to dip into that. So I'm a little bit uncomfortable when you take out all these other things that we need to do with what's going to be left. And, if God forbid there is an emergency or a situation where we need to access those funds. To me right now, a 15% increase is out of the question. I'd like to say everything is out of the question except for our current millage rate. but I don't know that we can operate and have all our bases covered. That's my biggest concern.
Our imminent projects and things that need to be done on our buildings right now to keep them safe and operable have been budgeted for. There are things that we have to consider, the tennis courts need resurfacing, those are all things that we can talk about prioritizing with whatever budget you pass in those district CIP.
Can I ask one thing? Can I ask something of the audience?
It's up to the chair and the board.
So, audience, if we had put out there that there would be a 5% increase in the millage, and it would go to capital improvement projects excluding the golf course, would you still be here? Or would you be in favor of capital improvement projects that support our beaches and parks?
0% increase, you don't need it. If you make a deal with the
We
city,
can't have you speaking because you're not on the record.
If you're in favor, raise your hands, I just wanna know.
you asked the
If you would
question.
be, if you would be okay with a 5% increase for capital improvement for beaches and parks, would you be okay with that?
Point of order, not proper.
And would you not?
Please.
It's
Some
up-
people didn't raise their hands, okay.
I mean, it's at the board's discretion.
I mean, we heard from so many people on the 19%, I wanted to hear on the 5%. If we had put 5% out there, I wanted to see who would be in support of the 5% increase and who wouldn't be.
Point of order.
You currently have the motion to recess to October 1st. What I would ask Mr. Ernst to do is clarify his motion to provide a time and the location for that meeting.
Okay, Craig, would you do that? And then I have a question for council.
Okay. I'd like to clarify the time to be October 1st, or is that, October 1st
6 p.m.
at 6 p.m. at the Willow Theater in Sugar Sam. And that's, we're gonna have to work with them to see what their scheduling is. Is that reasonable, or should I make it earlier?
I'll ask.
There could be a set on the stage, but probably not a show that day.
I can go downstairs and check on it. Thanks.
We're gonna check on that, the date and time. Keep in mind that the primary purpose of this recess is really to give our staff and city staff to come back with of details of how this could work. And it gets everyone in the room, and I think they can get to some kind of conclusion. So, and if they can't, that's when you go back to
David?
hearing.
Commissioner Engel, do you agree? You seconded the motion, so do you agree to the amendment?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so right now, pending double checking the calendar, we've got a motion to recess this hearing until October 1st, 6 p.m., Willow Theater at Sugar Center Park.
Sorry, but I'm sorry.
Erin, can I have, I haven't gotten to speak at all. Sorry. We need to direct staff, our staff, to speak to city staff formally, in writing, so that there are no more misconceptions about, we had asked for a meeting, in our last meeting, Brianne had asked city staff to, meet with Brianne, myself, and our council, and the city manager, the city attorney, and the mayor. And it never got back to the mayor apparently, and, which was unfortunate. We could have maybe discussed some of these things, and this meeting would have been not necessary. So I need to see if we could direct staff to have some conversation with our executive director and the city manager, and whoever else the city would like to have weigh in. I would be happy to sit in on the meeting to come to some kind of an agreement, and see what we might be able to do for funding for the golf course, so that we don't have to raise our millage rate to 19%. So, Craig?
So, Madam Chair, that was the purpose of giving you three options to further talk out details. But to be quite frank, I'd like to let the executive director do that with the designated person from the city, and then she will communicate with us and the designated person, if the city will get a consensus or not, what works for the city. But it is going to be kind of a rapid fire process. So there are three options that I've outlined. I did not entertain a different, fourth option, but the three options are the city takes it over completely. We are no longer, we have a debt obligation, they repay us for what we've done, and we walk away from it. The second option is the district continues on the process. They give us conceptual design approval. I fully understand Ms. Mayott's process of running it through design and everything. It will take an exceptionally longer period of time, and we can do that. But we have detailed designs. We know there's a lot of issues out there at Boca Chica that need to be resolved, so I say that is an option. And the third thing I did on the district revenue bond, in order for us to pay for a district revenue bond, because once you issue it, you have to pay for it. The part of the project there, estimating it to be about a 45 to 55 million bond for many things, where it would be going to the residents. This option will require from the city immediate relief from the future CRA payments of 1.6 million. And, you know, I saw the discussion around the CRA payment and the reference to the Florida statute. And my understanding of why we are in the CRA is you have to go back to the interlocal agreement. There was a time and a place for the CRA, and yes, the Florida statute does rule, but for whatever reason, the district and the city didn't agree at that point in time, and they negotiated the interlocal agreement, which was amended to allow for debt service. I think our overall intent here really is to fund recreation, you know, and the parks and the beaches, and so that's where our focus should be. The other component of that I would challenge staff to do is I do think the beach renourishment amendment that we endorse should be addressed with that, because when we first took on the purchase of the golf course, it was part of the program to ask the district to pay for, it was roughly $7 million over a period of time of the Boca Inlet dredging. Again, not something for us really, that's a major city project that they manage and they run. Fortunately, the city has been very good about getting much of it offset by federal money. All of these things, I'm just trying to cap our exposure to them. So my exposure is, I really want to redesignate our 1.6 million to the CRA to a revenue bond, and I think that we could cover that very easily. And then both parties will work to a mutual, ultimately a mutual master interlocal agreement. That does not have to be decided now. It will take a lot of time to do that. But there are three options, and those are the three options that I'd like the staff to work on.
What if the city comes back with something else?
It's okay. That's part of the process that they need to give their feedback, but we want to get it in writing, so it is conceptually where we can go with it.
Yeah, I'm good at setting the recess this evening, so long as we come back with some options that we can look at. And to Craig's point, and those are his proposed options. The city may have some other suggestions, and maybe there's something in there, as I said at our last joint meeting, maybe there's a solution there somewhere in the middle. You know, I'm firmly committed to the Price-Fazio design, but if the city would want to take over the entire project and reimburse us, to Craig's point, then we certainly have other opportunities that we could use with those funds that you know, we would not spend and would receive back.
One point on the Price-Fazio design, if the district proceeded with it, we still would need some source of funding. So whether it's through we would have to look at a outside financing. They will be looking at our non-ad valorem tax base, and according to the consultants, we can easily afford up to 15 million. And that's very easy from anyone who will finance it. It's not difficult. As you go up, it is a little bit more, it's tougher, but it is doable, well, up to 25 million. So I would say if we do that, we would look at only what we need, and I certainly believe the city is more adept at these kind of things, and the city resources is the best resource to do it, using their bond rating and credit. But if they don't want to do it, we can do it.
Do we vote on this now, Mr. Dawson? Or do we just recess?
No, you need to vote, but you need to make sure that you're finished with all your discussion tonight, because once you vote, if it passes, no more discussion.
Okay, Erin, you had something else you wanted to say?
Yeah, well, I had spoken to Brianne when Andy had brought up that bond of $40 or $50 million, and she said we couldn't afford to pay back a bond of that much.
We haven't seen the numbers, but if it was a $4 million payment, we only have $3.5 million at our current rate, so we couldn't afford that size of a bond. But again, we haven't seen concrete numbers on any of that stuff.
Right, but even if we took a bond for $40 million, we would be able to pay it back, right?
You're absolutely correct. We cannot take a bond by itself. That's why I'm asking for relief from the CRA payment of 1.6. whatever the results are of the discussion with the city will shape the millage rate. That's why it's important to recess, let staff work through it, and then we'll find out. And by the way, we will also get a discussion around the timeline, the exact timeline. The city has presented the budget of what they'd like to do, but we also all need to agree upon that. It's big commitments. And to be honest with you, I'm okay with waiting another year because we have the needs assessment coming up. And so I think there's a lot of value to listening to what needs are there, and maybe the focus is a field house and not the golf course. So I don't know, but I think we should give this the opportunity for the city to work with the city and get more information. We'll decide what our millage rate is on October 2nd, make a vote on that, do whatever that is, and then we will reassess it.
October.
October 1st, I'm sorry.
So your second option is working with them on the project?
Yes.
Okay, so just make that clear in that second option, because you know, in terms of getting some kind of, not financing, but
Yeah,
actually.
reread your second
Yeah,
option.
I thought that was just the district.
that
Okay,
was
look,
district.
here's my second option, is open for discussion, open for amendment, but I think it's gonna be left to staff with both parties to decide. So, for the district, present the city with the district's existing present design plans, which is at 19.9 million, with a phased implementation over 2 to 6 years. That's assuming there is no adjustment down, I don't know. If you have adjustments down, I'm open to that. The district to proceed with the east project layout at the district's expense, starting with the west course using the irrigation access and building the maintenance facilities. I think it's important to do these components because it expedites the whole process so that Boca Muni can ultimately, some of the staff or resources can be transferred. Separately, I suggest that we market the hotel site seeking to refresh our options to facilitate retail, restaurant, hotel, or other options pending a normal city zoning. The district will seek to reduce the west course cost with a holistic price value design, which you've been working on, and pending construction updates on everything and the hotel site, the west course will be constructed in the next phase pending city oversight and approval given during ongoing meetings, which I hope that we continue with the quarterly meetings. The city will then facilitate financing for the city with the city's credit. If they choose not to do that, we are available to do it. It'll just take a little bit more time. Or the city and the district proceed with the existing ILA when the district seeks outside financing. If you want to amend that, you're welcome.
Bullet point that for me, because that was a lot more than what I had written down. No, I'm serious. You know, you had it nice and simple and laid out. One, city takes over the entire project, and you went through the explanation. Two, the district does the project and starts with the east course, slowly phasing the approach with an agreement to have the irrigation from the west side of the course. Or the third option was the district do a revenue bond.
Correct.
So those are three options. You were going to send staff to talk with.
Those were my notes too.
Yeah.
So.
Those three options are outlined here. I apologize, I did give it to Brianne before I mentioned this, and I think these are all up to negotiation, discussion with the city. The city has certain needs and constraints. It will be overlaid best and handled by staff because they know where the priorities of the budgets are. They'll come back with a recommendation. I'm not saying, it's really up to the city. Pick which option you want, but focus on it, and then let's move forward.
Well, and then whichever option we agree to, if there comes back an option, if we agree to that, then, you know, we can then decide on what millage rate we need in order to accomplish this. And that's the whole reason I'm recommending the recesses, so we can have that opportunity. One last shot that Aaron's talking about to try to bring this together. And then, if not, then one of these three options or some other alternative may be available to us that we may go along with at our meeting October 1st.
I am optimistic that, as Aaron is, that we will get a solution some way, somehow between now and then, but it forces us to, both parties, to work together to do that, and we'll know where we stand.
Aaron?
One last question. Will the city, though, be able to make a decision on this without going to city council?
That's a good question. My personal opinion on it is this is for staff to work together. They will keep city council informed. I'm not asking for a city council meeting. but it'll be in good faith. We will get the perspective of what works for both parties, and we will have that information before we raise taxes or leave it the same.
There's a motion that has been seconded.
Correct.
Call the question.
I'm calling the question. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, like sign.
This meeting is recessed till October 1st at 6
Thank you,
p.m. at the
everyone, very
Willow
much for
Theater,
coming.
Sherwood Park.